Is Big Pharma trustworthy? Does Maha have a point? Let's see what Dr. Mike has to say. Alright guys, here we are. We're reacting to Dr. Mike versus 20 RFK supporters. Let's get it.
Administrators have ballooned beyond any reasonable level. Pharmaceutical companies have no transparency. And instead of going after those issues, Secretary Kennedy's calling me a profit monger. Aren't you mad at that?
Yes, I absolutely am. The definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results.
Agreed.
It's
But
failed.
is it also
It has
insanity to say, since this failed, better not do anything and cut it all together?
He's not saying.
This guy looks like he knows a lot about medicine. Alright, this is the intro. Let's get into the actual substantive takes. Alright, let's see here.
Is decimating public health and should step down as Secretary of Health and Human Services.
So, on this take, I would expect a doctor, a product of the institution that created this mess, to be saying that about RFK. I'm not 100% sold on his methods on RFK, but I don't know enough about it, to be honest with you. But I think that there are a lot of elements to the public health, the current modern medical industry as a whole, that are really falling short. It's too much discretion in doctors' hands. I'm actually suing for medical malpractice. I'm suing someone for medical malpractice currently as we speak. I just think the medical facilities are corrupt in a lot of instances. There are kickbacks and systems in place to help Big Pharma and help push pharmaceuticals as well as opposed to holistic therapy and holistic methods of healing. You know, you see these memes. They're like, pictures of the hospital having sun decks in hospitals having sun decks in like the 70s and 60s in America. Like, what happened to that, right? We don't have that. Instead, we have depression factories pumping out pharmaceuticals. I don't agree with that. So let's see. And I think RFK is anti-Big Pharma in a big way, which I like.
Hello. Dr. Mike. Nice to...
I think much of our policy is governed by money, right? The finances of it, who's making money, it's profit driven. Who has the money and who has money at stake with certain policies, that's who's going to get their policy enacted through lobby, right? We have a lot of chemical ingredients that RFK has shown a light on and has drawn attention to that are probably terrible for humans over the long term with constant consumption. And it seems that those have been overlooked. The banning of them has been overlooked because big money is on the side of keeping them legal, right? So this kind of stuff happens frequently in our political system. And I think it's important that we have outsiders coming in and kind of attacking that, not people who have driven and been promoted within industry and politics and big medicine that are corrupt, right? Those people probably had to suck the right dicks to get to where they are. And that means sucking lobbyist cock and making sure that you're attending to their needs, and then they will continue to push you forward in the political system. It's not about doing what's right for the people, right? That's just not how the political system works today. So I think we need as many outsiders with influence as possible.
Meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And of course, RFK Jr. is not an outsider. I mean, he has had, his family has had presidents, and they're a very political class family. So of course, that's not necessarily an outsider. He's a rich white guy at the end of the day, so he's part of that good old boys network.
How do you feel about my claim?
I think your claim is absurd.
Okay.
Because we've got someone that is actually challenging, which is science. I mean, science is about scrutiny, not Orwellian obedience. And if we want to find the truth, we should always have both sides of the story and, check out both sides and then find what the truth is.
That's interesting because in some ways I agree with your statement. We should absolutely be skeptical, and science is about proving our initial thoughts wrong. When we do research, for example, we try and look at not just our hypothesis of what we think is going to happen. We actually try to prove the null hypothesis. We actually try to design research that disagrees with us. So I'm curious why you think...
That doesn't mean, so look, yes, of course, being able to reject the null hypothesis means that there's like a strong correlation. I you know, I'm not a scientist. I don't know the exact terminology. It's been a long time since I studied this stuff in fucking elementary school, right? No, I'm kidding. Obviously, like high school around then, because I'm a finance major. I didn't study this in college, and go into higher education for science. But you know, that doesn't mean you can't set the null hypothesis and the alternatives up in ways in which it's easy, right? You can control for certain variables and not control for others. I'll give you an example, okay? I'll give you an example. You know, this is not true science, but let's say that you were trying to test a guy to see if he's gangster or not, right? This is a terrible analogy, really. This is like the worst analogy ever. But let's say it works though. You'll see how the logic extends and how it's parallel. Let's say there's a tough guy in prison or something like that, and you're trying to test if he's tough. And you test if he's tough by trying to psychologically fuck with him. You walk up behind him, you say slurs, and then you act like you didn't say it. And, you know, you say weird stuff about him. You like try to heckle him. You try to, you know, mess with him, make noises behind him, and just troll him and kind of psychologically mess with him and get in his head. But you're doing it from behind this veil of anonymity, right? And then you're saying, oh, well, he doesn't do anything. He doesn't crash out. He doesn't beat everybody up. He must not be that tough. You know, that's like not controlling for all the variables, because why didn't you just go up to him and try to beat his ass and see if he beat your ass or not? You see what I'm saying? The same thing applies in science. I mean, again, that is such a horrible analogy, but the same principle applies in science. You can test for certain variables without controlling for other variables and make it seem like you are. Like with fitness, I'll relate it to fitness, for example. You can test the efficacy of a workout or an exercise, right? By having a control group that doesn't perform that exercise, that doesn't perform, you know, performs like, let's say they perform like a regular strength schedule, weekly program, and the other program does that strength schedule, same weekly program, and let's change it to the efficacy of a supplement, right? And they're taking creatine, the other group's not, okay? You're not controlling for sleep, you're not controlling for meal timing, you're not controlling for the meals, right? You're not controlling for hydration, you're not controlling for exercise intensity. I mean, you're not controlling for a lot of things, you know, genetics, and, you know, you hope that these things are not skewed one way or another as a matter of sampling, right? You just hope the samples are good, but that doesn't mean that they are. You know what I mean? We can't really always know if everything's been controlled for. Just having to, us as a citizenry, having to go off of somebody else's assumptions about studies, and most of the time these guys are paid by people who have a direct stake in whether or not policy is enacted or not. Us having to trust those people is not ideal. I mean, it's not great. So, you know, yes, of course, the scientific method is tried and true, but it can be manipulated, just like anything else. In politics, everything's manipulable. Excuse me, mouthful.
Secretary Kennedy right now is
It's kind of a tongue twister, manipulable, isn't it? Manipulable.
correct.
But yeah, everything is manipulable, whatever the fucking word is.
Pick versus what you claim to be the other side.
Let's put it this way. We had to live through the medical tyranny of COVID, and his organization, Children's Health Defense, was on the front line of pushing back.
Agreed. Medical tyranny is a good word. I had to take the vaccine because I coached basketball and I had to be in the schools. You had to take the vaccine. And I was very against the vaccine. It wasn't well tested. I just didn't want an extra vaccine anyway. If I was going to catch the COVID, fuck it. You know what I mean? That was my mindset. Why should I have to take the vaccine? This is a free country, is it not? I mean, it definitely wasn't during COVID. It's hypocritical. Is it the land of the free, home of the brave, or is it the land of the enslaved? You know what I mean? Land of the peons, home of the enslaved. I don't know, man. It seems like it's the fucking latter right now, at least, especially with respect to COVID.
Against that tyranny, I was part of that. I did protests, and I started a rally in Beverly Hills that was very popular. By the end of the year, we had 4,000 to 6,000 people marching through the streets saying, enough is enough. You know, they first, like Fauci, told us, oh, you know, the masks don't work. And then, oh, you need to wear a mask. And then it was 2 masks. So, again, the goalpost just kept moving and moving.
That's true.
And we knew it was just baloney. I mean, anybody can smell a rat. And, you know, we just see a lot of the same pattern, like during HIV, for instance. Remember that Bactrim?
During HIV. Sis, that makes you sound fucking dumb as shit. I was gonna say a different word that starts with an R. Respected. No, okay. But I can't go there. But dude, what? During HIV, the fuck are you talking about, man? HIV exists.
They
Like, like what?
kind of, the NIH and the government were
I forgot HIV ended, guys. HIV is over.
demonizing this with doctors. And then we find out that it actually does help HIV. But they didn't want to cure because they wanted to push AZT, which made a lot of money for Big Pharma. Same thing happened during COVID.
I think she's like not that well spoken, but her point rings true, right? She makes a good point. Like what she's saying is true. I don't fucking trust doctors, okay?
And we had 2 doctors here in California that had a 99% success rate, okay? It was Brian Tyson and George Fareed. And they had 7,000 patients that they helped. 99%, which is better than the COVID-19 shot, because once we saw people taking those shots, we saw people dropping like flies.
I feel like we took a lot of topics there and we tried to put them together, so it's going to be difficult for me to reply to you. Let's start with the idea of moving the goalposts.
Okay.
So, in science, we're always learning, right? As a doctor.
This is the problem with debates. In debates, when you do throw a lot of things at people and you have a guy who actually knows substantively what he's talking about and the topic, they're going to naturally, even if they're not doing it intentionally, they're going to point out the weakest argument that you have with respect to what they know. You know what I mean? Like this guy knows and is ready to attack that point. It's stuck out in his mind as she was speaking. It's like, nope, that's one I'm definitely going to attack. And so when you throw a lot of stuff at someone, it helps them to kind of pick what they're going to respond to and stuff. In this setting, a good debate, I feel like the structure should be more like one-on-one. You take probably turns of a minute for like 2 hours. You know what I mean? Maybe 2 minutes. But you're not just, and of course it can end earlier, but I don't think this 3-minute setting helps anybody. But of course these people are lay people, right? Coming onto a debate show with an expert, you're not going to last more than 3 minutes. You don't know what you're talking about or what to say. My dog is entering the stream, guys.
Doctor,
what's up, Brody?
The things that I recommend today will likely change in 10 years and 20 years because as knowledge evolves, we're going to make new recommendations. Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say, but this is months, okay? And we know that a virus...
That's fair to say, but then, when you're acting as if science is perfect right now, that's kind of your argument, isn't it? Like you're saying, as we know more, look, I was a personal trainer, right? I was a strength and conditioning coach and speed, agility, quickness coach. I was like an athletic performance coach, right? One thing that's new these days, like the past decade, has been knees over toes training. Specifically going to end range with your knee over your toe and training that range to prevent injuries. Back in like the 70s and 80s, they used to say that was like contraband. You know what I mean? That was like gospel to never go knees over toes. You're going to get hurt, da 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 da. And we found that actually exposing yourself to that in controlled settings and increasing your exposure can prevent injuries in game. So yes, you find new things out. But until then, is what we thought before the authority? Like, obviously not. Everything should be questioned and challenged all the time. For, you're saying right now is what we take today to be the don't put your knees over your toes or you're going to get hurt. And then you end up going out in the game where your knees have to go over your toes and you get hurt because you never trained that shit. That's gospel. We got to take it as gospel until we see evidence to the contrary. I'm not with that, bro. I'm just not with that. I think that, no, that's not how that works. That's stupid.
This is 0.3 micron. We see the holes in the mask. You really think that's it?
Yeah, so this is really interesting. I love that you point out the particle size. And there's actually a unique principle with particle movements that the reason why N95 masks actually work quite well for the COVID virus, because even when something is smaller than the size of the mask, the pores within the mask, the way that those particles move actually makes them more readily captured by that mask. Isn't that interesting how sometimes what we
Explain. I don't understand that. I can't visualize it. I'm sure that Brownian motion is, I see, okay. They don't move in a straight line. Right, okay, I have seen that actually. Okay, fair. Look, I think masks are ridiculous. Dude, if you don't want to get sick, stay inside. It's that simple. COVID was made out to be this, big catastrophe. It had, a 99% survival rate, bro. I get it. Stay home, bro. Stay home. It's the flu. Stay home. I got yelled at in an elevator one time because I wasn't wearing a mask and people were getting on the elevator. I was already on the elevator. Bitch, fucking wait then. What the fuck? I ain't wearing no fucking mask, gang. What the fuck?
Perceived to be the logical answer sometimes can be disproven.
Anyway, we're gonna move. Yeah, exactly. Well, he's making my point for me, right? I guess.
And this goes to show in the same way that we made mistakes in the past.
Well, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because they were putting masks on people. So now bacteria is gigantic compared to a virus. We know that, right?
Yeah, they're larger.
And my friend, by the way, was a biology research professor at UCLA. So I've learned a lot from him. And, he went to a very established
What kind of friend was that? No, I'm kidding.
school, Cambridge
Men and women can be friends, I guess.
University. And that's what he dealt with. That's why he said, this is nonsense. So I'm going to listen to the experts, which is Dr. Elliot Hamoff, and look at, people were getting sick and worse when they were wearing masks because they were forcing themselves to breathe the very bacteria that was dangerous.
So when I'm in the hospital and
Okay.
I'm treating patients who have COVID-19, for an example, I wear an N95 mask. You think I'm wearing that mask to potentially make myself more sick instead of protecting myself?
Of course, that's not your intention. All right, that was ridiculous. All right, let's move on. Let's see. Let's move on. That was COVID. Sometimes these don't always track, these topics up here. They end up going off on tangents and digressing and talking about something else. But let's see what else I talk about.
Individually motivated. But from a societal perspective, let's, for example, say we make a city more walkable. We make lighting more available, especially at night. We create more sidewalks, we make more parks, we create programs for kids to participate in after-school sports programs. Those are societal things that politicians can get behind. Don't you think that will make it easier for individuals to be healthy?
All of the money that you're advocating for, and you're criticizing RFK Jr. for cutting in the budget, none of that money went to those things.
When you,
if you
diabetes
told me,
prevention, how do you think we think about diabetes prevention?
well, let me ask you this. How many people have diabetes right now? Has the number gone up since that program's been in effect for the past 30 years? So the question is, when is enough enough? The definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again.
Fair enough. I mean, white people have less diabetes than Indians. That's actually true. Look it up. We're 10 times more likely because during colonization, people were starving, and being able to produce more insulin with little food was a desirable evolutionary trait. So everybody else died off. The people who were able to produce a lot of insulin survived, and now when they get back on a normal diet, they have diabetes because they produce way too much. So, I mean, I guess in this country, it might not make sense to fund diabetes. I don't know. But what this guy's saying also, I understand. Societally, yes. I mean, he was talking about an individual versus societal perspective. I didn't catch the whole point, obviously. I jumped in the midway. But, yeah, I mean, that's the same logic I have behind, I think marijuana shouldn't be legal from a societal perspective. As an individual, yes, you might enjoy yourself. You might enjoy marijuana. It might not harm you that much. But societally, it's creating idiots. It's going to be more readily accessible for children. There are a lot of drawbacks to legalizing marijuana. So I understand his point there.
And expect different results.
Agreed.
It's
But
failed.
is it also
It has
insanity to say, since this failed, better not do anything and cut it all together?
He's not saying better not do
He
anything.
cut it in half.
Okay, but is he doing nothing?
Yes.
No,
Tell me
he's
what
not. No,
he's
he's
done
not
to
doing
encourage
nothing.
people to exercise.
Okay, what about the law in Texas that he passed with, I forget exactly what it was, but he's going around, he's essentially using what would be considered his bully pulpit, and he's trying to inspire people and make cultural changes. And ultimately,
But
that's
he can
going
be
to
an
more
inspirational
powerful.
figure and not be the head of Health and Human Services.
So it's really simple. Where has legislation gotten us? We take all of our time, all of our energy, and all.
Fair point, but you just want some nerd schmuck in there, and for the principle of it, but it doesn't mean he shouldn't be in there. But anyway, I mean, look, I don't feel any type of way about what RFK Jr. whether he should be in office or not. I do think that I agree with a lot of things he says. That's all.
Of our budget, and we put it into legislation.
I agree, it's been ineffective.
And here's
My next surrounding claim is that the MAHA movement is sabotaging the doctor-patient relationship.
Doctors are sabotaging the doctor-patient relationship. Doctors a lot of the times don't know anything, and they're just... Google beats doctors all day, bro. You can tell me that it doesn't, but all day. All day. Obviously, you can be misled, but if you know how to look for information on the internet, Google is going to give you way more specific information than like a general medicine doctor is ever going to be able to. Even a person who's a specialist. I mean, look, some doctors are great, right? And they see eye to eye with people. A lot of doctors will just recommend the most invasive procedure immediately because it helps their pockets. It's honestly what the system wants you to do. Right? It brings business into the medical industrial complex. And I mean, I've had sports medicine doctors tell me, oh, you have a torn labrum, you can get this, you have a cyst from that, It's like labral leakage. You get that fluid removed. You don't need surgery. You can forego that. Come back to that years later. The least invasive methods, right? But that was like the fifth opinion. Most doctors are going to promote whatever is just easiest and quickest to the hand because it got them through med school at the bare minimum, remembering that. So, no, it's no good. The doctors in this country do not need a movement to sabotage the doctor-patient relationship. They're doing a great job of that themselves.
Hi, doctor.
Hello, pleasure.
to meet you. Okay, so repeat your claim for me.
My claim is that the MAHA movement is sabotaging the doctor-patient relationship.
Okay, so for me, I'm going to take this back to COVID, and I don't want to stay on this topic. I had the Delta variant, and I went to the doctors, and I told them, I'm sick.
I don't want to talk about COVID. I feel like a lot of these right-wingers are like super hung up on COVID, and that's their main talking point as to why they don't trust liberals and whatnot. But, you know, I think we can move on from this.
Do the work to fix it. I don't want to patient blame, but this is the reality of what happens. So how do we fix all of these big problems without creating disconnects by cutting research budget? Like if Secretary Kennedy
Well, I want to know where that money went because
It didn't go anywhere.
Well, a lot
It just
of
got
this
cut.
money though was going to insurance companies.
the
a
research
lot-
dollars doesn't go to insurance.
Well, I would, seeing what happens in local politics, I see a lot of money laundering going on. I hate to say it. Pleasure,
Thank you so
sir.
much. I appreciate it.
I
know you're
really
going through a
appreciate
lot.
you. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. So talk to me. How do you feel about the sabotaging of the doctor-patient relationship by the MAHA movement?
I don't agree with it. I don't think that MAHA is sabotaging the relationship. As a matter of fact, I think it's cultivating confidence in patients to be able to speak to their doctors because it's providing education in a way that has never been there before.
Fair. This is good to be, you know, doctors hate when patients come in and they already know what's going on, right? Because it's like, what am I here for? It makes them feel obsolete and useless. But at the end of the day, I need to know what to do with my body. Whether it's you telling me that and me taking your advice or it's me doing my own research, I'm going to know what the fuck is going on, man. I really hate doctors. I'll be honest with you. I don't trust them as people. A lot of them are just idiots that made it through med school. I'm damn near 30. I'm 28 years old. I've seen idiot friends of mine get into medicine and proceed on through the system. I don't trust these motherfuckers. But they're gonna be doctors. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? Fuck that. I'm smarter than these people. It's just plain and simple.
And I know you.
I can, you know, I have access to the same information that they had through med school. I can do my research and whittle it down. Outside of emergency situations, there's no need for me to trust a doctor over myself and my own discretion. There's just not. You can't tell me there is.
We're talking about research, and so you're a busy doctor. Do you have time to do research?
When you say do research, do you mean actually do clinical trials myself?
Follow all of the data?
Sure.
You do. So
Yeah.
you, in addition to a week-long log of patients, you make time to read all of the material and all of the data about different
You want me to be
topics.
honest?
Yes.
Sometimes I do it in the room with the patient.
Okay,
Because I'm
great.
family medicine, so like a lot of different
Awesome.
conditions come. So absolutely.
Well, you're very rare.
Well, I appreciate that, but let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
So we can get off to perhaps a better talking point. Secretary Kennedy.
Yes.
In the last few months, went on a podcast and basically defamed all doctors in the United States by saying doctors are just interested in profit and keeping patients sick. Hearing that.
I agree. And it's the thing is, it's not doctors as individuals that are interested in that. It's the system as a whole. You are educated. What's in your medical textbooks is likely paid for, lobbied for, right? To introduce something into that curriculum, into what's accredited and what's standardized. I'm sure that's the case. I'm really just guessing, right? Guessing, but I'm sure that's the case. Like, let's be real, guys. Everything in this country is lobbied for and paid for. So you don't think these pharmaceutical companies are paying for more of a default to pharmaceuticals sort of education system, and then now you're just doing that. You think what you're doing is proper, right? You're like, oh, we're giving this guy Adderall, he needs it, and you think that what you're doing is right for the patient, but in reality, it was paid for you to be taught that, and there are alternatives that could be much better and more holistic, you know?
Line, as a patient yourself, do you feel that your doctor is in your best interest, is working in your best interest? And do you have more trust in your doctor after hearing that line?
So I have enormous respect for Bobby Kennedy. I feel like he's educated and informed and does the research on the data and has worked on cases that he's become familiarized with medical data. So I believe that when he speaks, he comes from a place of informed
So you
knowledge.
agree that doctors
So I'm gonna answer that as well. So when I go to my doctor, typically my doctor, I don't have, thank goodness, I don't have a lot of health issues, but when I have, my doctor wants to move me to medication, which always makes me think that in med school, that doctors are trained to find a medicalized solution rather than
Agreed. Wow. Well put.
an
was
alternative
well said.
solution that empowers my own immune system and my own body.
Okay.
And so
Yes. There's so many things. There's this principle called hormesis, right? It's the idea that something something that's generally damaging to the human system or any animal system or any organism, really any system, period, in small doses can actually create benefits because it creates it forces adaptability, right? Look it up, hormesis, Hormesis. Look that up. That's not something that a doctor would ever recommend, but it's worked in many ways. There are many folk tales of that, and I'm not saying that anecdotes and folk legends and these like, you know, wives' tales, urban myths, whatever the fuck you want to call them, should supersede and be held as more credible than medical studies and research journals. But I do think there's some credence to be given, right, to these sorts of stories we hear.
when I go in to talk to my doctor will look at me and be like, okay, you don't want any of that. And I'd be like, no, I want to have.
Yeah, I always tell my doctor, no meds. No meds. There's a way around this without meds. Dude, I found an Indian, this is embarrassing, right? I have what's called a pilonidal cyst. You can look it up. I'm a hairy dude, so basically like your hair can grow in certain places in your body and it becomes like this cyst, right? It becomes like this cyst and then it becomes an abscess. When I had that, they were telling me I had to get surgery. All the doctors told me I had to get surgery. I'm not making this up. All the doctors told me I had to get surgery. I talked to like 4 doctors. I was like, fuck that. I'm not taking surgery. I don't want to sit out for 6 to 12 weeks. I don't want to be like, I like to train and be in the gym and shit. I'm not going 6 to 8 weeks to 12 weeks sitting on a donut and not, putting on not lifting weight, right? I'm not doing that. And they're going to cut out a piece of your muscle to get the cyst out. Fuck that. Okay? I found an Indian guy on YouTube. Not even kidding, bro. Not even kidding. Indian dude on YouTube that said if you get salicylic acid and you rub it on the cyst every day or like whenever it starts to flare up, it keeps it down. And I started trying that. Guess what? It's been like 10 years and that bitch has not flared up. It barely flares up now. It's like salicylic acid is like what you put on your face to prevent acne, right? So I use that on my pilonidal cyst and it like barely ever flares up. If it ever flares up, I use like 1 or 2 of those pads for like 2 days, it goes away. Dude, like that shit is magic. I would have gotten surgery if I listened to a doctor. I would have had a piece of my ass missing, bro. Like, fuck that, bro. Fuck that shit.
A different conversation. And Maha provides that because it's talking about
I totally agree with that, the spirit of Maha in that sense, because what you're talking about is not trusting the modern medical system. And I have a very high disdain and distrust for the modern medical system. Again, I'm suing for medical malpractice currently. I'm in the midst of a lawsuit, and I'm probably going to win a lot of money. Because they fucked up. So I'm probably going to win a lot of money. So anyway, let's proceed.
dies. And
I'm going to go ahead and skip to the next topic, okay?
Is that Big Pharma is more trustworthy than Big Supplement.
You're comparing shit to shit, cow shit and horse shit, which smells worse. It's terrible. Who cares, bro? They're both terrible. Of course, Big Supplement is less regulated. People can just sell anything, but they're both profit-driven industries. And Big Pharma is just way bigger. There are so many conspiracies which we are not allowed to give credence to because, you're an idiot. How could you possibly believe that? This guy should have no credibility. Kobe Bryant, they said he got killed because of an issue with Big Pharma. That he was suing for hundreds of millions of dollars. They came after him and they hired somebody to destroy the helicopter. Big Pharma is one of the worst people to go against, one of the worst industries to go against, because they're $1 billion. Pfizer, okay, Pfizer, COVID vaccine. Quarter 1 of 2020, Quarter 1 of 2019, and Quarter 1 of 2020, or it might have been Quarter 1 of 2020 and then Quarter 1 of 2021. If you look at that juxtaposition of those two, like a year later, same quarter, 240% increase in revenue. It might have been profit. I think it was revenue, year-over-year revenue. Excuse me, quarter specific revenue for Quarter 1 of the year before the vaccine was released and Quarter 1 of when the vaccine was in effect. I want you to think about that. 240% increase in revenue. Do you think that maybe lobbying for vaccines to be pushed quicker was probably a profitable decision for Pfizer? You can look that, fact check me on those numbers, by the way. I would think that's a great business decision by these evil monkeys that own Pfizer. You know what I'm saying? But that doesn't make the vaccine any more efficacious.
Hello.
How are
Love
you?
the suit.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be with you today. I just wanted to say it's really unfortunate that you're feeling that the Maha movement is getting in the way of the relationship you're having with your patients. I think what we really need to be talking about is public trust. And the public is losing trust in our government because it is being captured by special interests like Big Pharma. And I say that because, like FDA, is funded about 50% or more from fees that are paid to it by the very drug companies that they are approving. So there's a little bit of a conflict of interest there. And also, Big Pharma spends about $20 billion a year in advertising. $7 billion of which
20 billion. Woo! That's a ton. And advertising is advertising, right? But like if you have this pill that you see on TV and you're like, oh, I have this issue, I should go, look, man, I'm an American. I drink a ton of alcohol. Not me. I don't need more. But let's just say I'm a typical American. We're average American. Drink a ton of alcohol, eat red meat, do all this shit that's terrible for my health. Now I have these health issues, okay? I have been sold to, my money has been taken from me in exchange for things that destroy my health. Because I live in a corporate country, corporate world, right? I'm not trying to shit on America, right? Well, at the end of the day, that's what we go through as Americans. We deal with that. We have to try to block these influences out in order to live a healthy life. And I think RFK is trying to fix that. In any case, RFK Jr. In any case, right, this American goes into, he's watching TV, whatever, probably what average Americans do, right? Lay around, drink beer and watch TV. I'm kidding. But look, let's say that's what this guy's doing, right? And he sees this like commercial to to fix his diarrhea or whatever. And he's like, contact your doctor for more information. And he's like, oh, well, I'll go in there and there should not be commercials for medicine, man. There shouldn't be commercials for medicine. How ridiculous. Think about it. That's dangerous, actually. If you have a health issue, you go to the doctor and you get that shit treated. Boy, you get that shit taken care of. You don't look at a commercial and then go in and be like, you realize you have issues. That's terrible. It's horrible. That's horrible. And I'm interested in the lobbying numbers. I don't know if that includes the lobbying amounts.
is direct to consumer. And we see all of
$7 billion is direct to consumer, so $13 billion would be probably lobbying or advertising to hospitals or doctors directly. Hey, sell our product.
these ads on TV, you know the ones.
If you think about it, a doctor's a glorified salesman for Big Pharma. That's what a doctor is. You just have to jump through these hoops and learn, this is how you have to say, become brainwashed, basically. Med school, go through med school, become brainwashed, believe in our products, believe in our products, believe in our products. We've paid the government billions of dollars to make sure this is in the textbooks. Believe us, believe in our products. Now go sell our products. Now go sell our products.
Talking about
Absolutely, with the pretty butterflies.
they're going
people
through
in the
fields
field.
and they're happy and singing songs.
Us in New Zealand, right?
Yeah, and at the end, really, really quickly, it's all about it could be an antidepressant medication, and at the end, it's really, really fast, may cause explosive diarrhea, spontaneous.
Facts, bro. And they speed past that shit. Yo, that's evil. That's true evil, dog. True evil. These quick side effect things. Oh, your heart might stop. You might have internal bleeding. You might have hemorrhages. You might have an aneurysm. It's okay. Call your doctor for more. Like, come on, bro. Like this big long commercial. You might die. You know what I'm saying? Come on, bro.
Combustion and even suicidal thoughts, you know? Big Pharma,
Suicidal thoughts brought to me with no advisory.
like any special interest, has captured our government. And when it's captured our government on so many levels, not just the three-letter agencies, but it's out in the open how much they're giving to our electeds. And so they are literally putting the profits of Big Pharma over people and our health.
Interesting.
Facts. I want to see what he has to say about that.
There's parts of that I agree with and parts that I disagree with. If you'd like to hear what I agree with is that pharmaceutical companies are absolutely interested in profits. This is a for-profit system.
Right.
It's a capitalist nation. In fact, if you look at our food supply, it's primarily focused on profits instead of trying to keep us healthy. That's pretty much always been the case within the last 50 years or so. When it comes to pharma versus supplements, which is kind of what we were discussing here, because some people say, I don't want to take a pharmaceutical, I'd rather go the natural approach. That is said a lot in terms of the internet. And I think that there's two issues with it. One is that there's this natural fallacy that just...
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure people do say that. For me, the answer is I don't want to default to pharmaceuticals. I don't take any pills right now. Dog, I don't take no supplements, no pills. I eat good food. I'm healthy, bruh. I fuck my bitch. I take care of my dog. I lift weights. That's all I do. I do semen retention sometimes. I think that's great. And why doesn't... Well, the medical industry will never let you talk about that. They'll treat you like a quack. And I've done it and it works. So, anyway.
Because something is natural means it's safe. And just because something is for profit means it's evil. And that's weird to me because things that are natural can be absolutely dangerous. So like cyanide, arsenic, these are natural phenomena and they're absolutely dangerous.
Absolutely.
And things that are for profit, like supplement companies, can be sometimes beneficial. Like if someone has a vitamin D deficiency, I would absolutely tell them to take a vitamin D supplement. The issue is, do you know how big the pharmaceutical industry...
Another medical story for you. I used to have migraines, right? Like crazy. They stopped happening nearly as much when I stopped using pornography. Another thing is, when I had them acutely, the medicine that I was given by the doctors never worked. Rizatriptan, all the triptan family, never worked. I had a 10-day long migraine because I was taking Seroquel, and that's part of the reason I'm suing somebody for medical malpractice. I had a 10-day long migraine. I never had a migraine that long before. 10 days, this shit lasted, right? Couldn't go outside. 10 days. And I mean, it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. And marijuana, guess what? Guess what acutely helped my migraines? Marijuana. Where's the literature on that until the early 2010s? Huh? Decades. Marijuana was not legal. And I'm against the legalization of recreational marijuana use, but you see how these things work? You see how these things work in practice? This shit is a sham, man.
in the United States for billions of dollars. You don't just say no.
How many billions of dollars they make?
Yeah.
I don't know.
$600 billion. Crazy sum, right? Do you know how big the Global Wellness Institute says the wellness industry is in the United States?
Okay, so he's pivoting to attack the big supplement industry. He's not talking about the pitfalls of big pharma. It's fine. If he thinks the big pharma is better than big supplement, I'm not going to argue that. I think they're both terrible. I think supplements, for the most part, you kind of engage in at your own caution, so to speak, because you don't have an authority figure telling you to take big supplement. Yo, take this whey protein, it'll be good for you. You might have like a trainer or a coach telling you that, but it's not a doctor, right? A doctor comes in with this authority and they're like, take Seroquel. All your problems will disappear. Take this blood thinner. Take this. Do this. And it's like, okay, well, the doctor says it. A lot of people really believe that shit, bro. Oh, the doctor told me to. Who's the doctor? He's the doctor. That's why I don't give a fuck about doctors or professionals in any capacity. I'm representing myself in lawsuits right now. I'm really a fucking hero, bro. We're not going to talk about that, though. I'm not here to talk about me, but I'm literally, I don't use lawyers, I don't use doctors. I use Ravi Muley and ChatGPT. No bullshit, bro. No cap. ChatGPT, bro, you just have to ask the right questions and dig into the sources. And it might take a couple hours, but you're going to learn some shit. You go to a doctor, you don't learn shit. They tell you take this, it does this. Okay, I guess the doctor said so. take Otezla, you know? you got fingernail psoriasis, take Otezla, take this. Well, you know, now I have a bad heart and I'm gonna die. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not good, bro.
Probably bigger than that.
2 trillion.
Let's move on. Because he's clearly pivoting.
Claim is that Maha leadership cares less about health and more about money, power, and politics.
How is that possible?
Hey, Doc.
Hello, hello.
How are you doing?
Nice to see you.
Good to meet you.
You think that the group that is taking out political institutions that influence our medical, I won't say political institutions, but pathways for our medical institutions to be influenced by, you know, through politics, by big money, you think that group cares less about health and more about politics? How so?
So I want to hear what your proof for your claim is.
Yeah, so I think if you care about health, you would put investment into research into finding cures, as we talked.
First of all, you don't prove a claim, you support it. You can't prove claims outright unless they're something that's factual. This is not factual, this is subjective.
About earlier.
That doesn't matter.
You look into systemic ways to get the biggest bang for your buck in terms of improving people's lives. I think the Maha movement has said a lot of those things to get PR wins, but hasn't actually executed any of them. Instead, what has happened...
Yeah, but see, this is the trained doctor peon mind, right? I've been through med school. I've seen hundreds of medical journals that say this, and this. This is proven true because these twisted studies that don't control for these external variables and may be misleading because they're set up in a certain way. You know, millions of these studies. I've seen a lot of them, guys. We should do more of them. What if we don't want that shit, bro? What if we don't think that that's effective? What if we think that this bureaucratic bullshit that is required to get any sort of medical policy enacted is not the way? What if we think that certain things that are not profit driven will never be researched? What about then? What if I find some shit online and I think, okay, well, this looks like it's not going to make anybody money, but it seems to be people are talking about it. It must be because it's effective. Because otherwise, why the fuck would anyone talk about it? Why would anyone talk about salicylic acid pads? Sorry, I fucked up the camera there. Why would anyone talk about salicylic acid pads working for a pilonidal cyst? Unless it worked. Nobody gets paid off of that shit. Nobody gets paid off of that. Use your brain, bro. Use your brain.
Is we've seen a tremendous cut in these budgets that have been reserved for improving our health.
Which, by the way, wasn't RFK who did that. That was the Department of Government Efficiency who did that. So that wasn't even him. They did that at the beginning of the year.
By the way, the salicylic acid helps with the pilonidal cyst becoming an abscess. It doesn't get rid of the cyst. The cyst, I still have the cyst, but it doesn't produce any issues, right? It's just there, dormant.
In charge.
So it's fine. I would rather have done. I don't have surgery. I've never gotten surgery once in my life, and I never will because I don't want some other motherfucker who evolved from apes, just like I did, to stick some shit inside my body and fuck around a little bit. I'm good. I'm cool off that, bro. I'm cool.
Of Health and Human Services, which is responsible for NIH, FDA,
And Doge was in
and
charge of
CDC.
cutting all federal agencies, and they were the one who made the cuts. So, like,
I agree with you.
Right.
Where was RFK on television talking about how terrible it is?
he wasn't anywhere because a large portion of that funding wasn't necessarily going to what we thought it was going to. For example,
Let's say yes.
Okay.
Let's say that's the case. You don't even need to prove it.
okay.
Did he redirect that funding to something better?
No,
he
because-
just cut it.
Yeah, right.
But
because,
don't we need to invest more into
because
improving
I'll
people's
tell you
lives?
why. Because we have so many conflicts of interest in the government, which I think you would agree, right?
Sure.
Part of your claim, and I think you made this earlier, was that RFK actually is like he doesn't have to report where his funding comes from,
Sure.
which is not true because the head of the HHS, the CDC, the NIH, they all any head of any federal government agency always has to report any of their financial backings, right? So they do have to report that. But if you look at one of the things,
That doesn't mean there's not ways around that. I'm not disagreeing with what his overall point is, but that does not mean there are not ways around that, brother. Don't be fooled.
that people were very upset about, for example, how
Dog, you can, dude, there are a billion ways around that. I coach basketball. You know how many kids get fucking paid, dude, that aren't supposed to be getting paid by somebody, like, specifically? You know what I mean? The school's still not supposed to be paying kids. I think now colleges can, in the rev share model or whatever, but that was happening before. You got a bag man, dog. You get old fucking Chucky from, Nick Saban's not giving fucking Mac Jones the money, right? Or Derrick Henry the money. Nick Saban is getting fucking Alabama Chuck from down the street to get the money from one of his assistant coaches to go give to Derrick Henry's mom. And then Derrick Henry pulls up to Alabama in a fucking Lambo. You see what I'm saying? That, just because they don't have any financial backing on paper, doesn't mean anything.
An IAC board, right? You're familiar with that, where he cut
No, tell me about that.
So he cut, I believe, a lot of the members of the board there. And
Oh, the
everybody was-
ACIP,
That's what I meant. Yeah.
the Advisory Committee for Immunization.
Exactly. Yeah. 70 to 80% of that board was not reporting enough of where their financial backing was coming from. So a lot of the backing that they're doing in those,
Yes, okay, so that was actually not true, and he didn't have the counter the fact check. That's fine, but so it turns out whatever this guy just said is not true. But at the end of the day, like I said, it doesn't matter whether they're not reporting or they're failing to report. It means nothing, right? They could be being invited out to vacation, getting gifts from from a different entity.
in that
Doesn't matter, bro. A lot of these guys go to the same elite institutions. They meet each other. They know each other's families, and it's quid pro quo. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I'll tell this guy to scratch your back, and then he'll have this guy scratch my back if he, you know what I mean, like that.
research isn't firstly necessarily going to where you think it's going. Well, what makes you think that they care so much about money, power, and politics when he's not making any money from it? He's clearly being demonized by the media, and they haven't even put any regulations in place. The only thing that RFK has done in the 8 months that he's been in office is the food dye regulation. Everything else has just been a recommendation. There's been no regulations that have been passed by the HHS.
Did you see the first MAHA report that he put out?
I did not know. Oh, it was in September, right?
No, it was earlier in the year, but
Got
it
it.
was a big report. He said, look, we're trying to make children healthier. And there were some valuable things. They were focusing on lifestyle changes. That's cool. 7 sources, fully made up, about research that was never done. When it reached out to the authors, that they listed their reasoning for why they were
There's no
making
way,
certain
yes.
I guarantee you, those sources were fully made up.
Okay.
People reached out to the participants' names that were listed as authors, and they quote unquote said, we never did that research. It does not
That's interesting.
exist.
Okay, what was in the report? Because
I mean, the
I'll just be
report
honest,
is
I'm familiar.
dozens of pages long,
What
but
was it about?
about children's
Did it
health
publish
care.
any regulation? Was it just regulation?
That's interesting. That's not good. If they said it a bunch of fake bullshit, that's definitely not a good thing.
It's been a recommendation.
I don't think it just destroys everything. It hurts their credibility a little bit. But I think overall, again, the mission, I agree with the vision that MAHA has, MAHA. I definitely agree with that.
There's been no regulations that have been passed.
I'm super MAHA, and I was MAHA before MAHA was MAHA. You know what I'm saying? I've been MAHA for decades, bro. Maybe not decades. I've been MAHA for a long time. I'll tell you that. My mom's a doctor. I don't trust her.
By the HHS.
I mean, I'm sure she's a great doctor. I just don't, she's my mom. I've seen her make mistakes, just like every kid has seen their parents fuck up before in life. And so I know doctors can fuck up because I've seen a doctor fuck up.
Did you?
And I also know dirty doctors. There's a guy that prescribed me medication very quickly for migraines earlier when I was a kid that I knew through one of my doctor relatives. I'm not going to say who. And he was a dirty doctor. He just prescribed meds. I know a guy who prescribes Xans in Brooklyn, New York. He'll just give you Xans. You go in there, you be like, Doc, I'm not feeling great. I feel anxious. I think people are looking at me. Okay, here's Xanax, kid. Like, he's a known, I'm friends with a lot of people who do shady shit. And that's like a known loophole, right, for people to get Xans. So, I mean, bro, like, this shit is not a perfect system in any way at all.
You see the first MAHA report that he put out?
I did not know. Oh, it was in September, right?
No, it was earlier in the year, but
Okay.
it was a big report. He said, look, we're trying to make children healthier. And there were
Right.
some valuable things. They were focusing on lifestyle changes. That's cool. 7 sources, fully
Okay.
made up, about research that was never done. When it reached out to the authors, that they listed their reasoning for why they were
There's no
making
way,
certain
yes.
I guarantee you,
Okay, we're going to move on. That does harm their credibility for sure. I'll say that. Last one.
Is that unchecked big pharma is reason enough for Kennedy's reforms?
Agreed. Yes, I agree. That's a big enough problem by itself to distrust everybody that's a part of that system. 100%. That's bigger than having fake studies in your report. I'm sorry, man, because fake studies, yeah, that's not great. It looks bad. It's poor form. It's definitely a faux pas. It could point to ill will and bad intentions, but big pharma is guaranteed profit motive. Fuck people. Who cares? Put this guy on this medication with 35 side effects because it puts another extra $150,000 a year in my pocket just to have him on that shit through insurance. And then imagine putting fucking hundreds of millions of people on that. No, fuck big pharma.
So I guess what I want to start this off with is just a little bit of history, okay? And in 1986, what was signed into law by Ronald Reagan was the National Child Vaccine Injury Act. And from there, you are no longer able to sue companies like Pfizer, holding them accountable for vaccine injury or things like that, for the specific reason that they wanted the releasing of vaccines to be more effective.
Oh man, that's an incredible point he just made. Think about that for a second. And I'm going to add to it. I'm going to piggyback off of the point you just made. Think about the fact that you can't sue for certain things because they don't want to make it, they don't want to hurt the credibility of these companies. Think about the lobbying that takes. That's tyranny at the end of the day. My dog is a part golden retriever, right? He's more prone to cancer. Golden retrievers are more prone to cancer risk. So I did a lot of research on cancer supplements to prevent cancer, suppress cancer and tumor growth, right? Guess what you can't put on your products to market them? Because Big Pharma has a copyright on anything that has to do with the word cancer suppression. And guess what Big Pharma doesn't do? Suppress cancer. They treat the cancer once you get it, once the dog gets it or once the human gets it, but they don't have prevention, right? It's not, there are some guidelines and stuff, but there's not anything to really prevent cancer. So this stuff, the turkey tail, broccoli, whatever, these little things, you got to look it up. I'm not off the top of my head. I don't know what they are, but you can't make a holistic cancer suppression supplement and market it as such because there's a patent on that by Big Pharma. I was going to do it because I realized, hey, there's no big, there are like 5 different items that can help with suppressing cancer for my dog, and I can give it to him every day. But there's no big overarching supplement that he can take, to just prevent cancer specifically. Because I was doing research, obviously, on him as a part golden and whatnot. That's my dog. I want him to live forever, right? So, but I was going to make the supplement. I was talking to my buddy about it. I was like, you know what, hey man, look, it costs a little bit, probably like $6,000-$7,000 just to get this thing off the ground. You got to get in the lab, you got to get some marketing, some pill bottles and shit, put it together. Guess what you can't do? It's illegal to do. You can't market anything for cancer suppression. That is ridiculous, man. What reason is there for that besides to destroy competition? It's horrific. And it's not like I'm out here suggesting that, anything should be able to be listed as anything. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if I were to make a product that had elements and ingredients in it that were clearly shown to suppress cancer and clearly correlated with reduced cancer rates, I should be able to market that product as something that is linked with cancer suppression and is correlated with cancer suppression, has 5 elements that does this, then this does this for cancer, this does this for cancer. I should be able to put that on the fucking label. And you can't. And now there's no supplement because nobody can make money doing that. It's just a shitty business model to do. So it makes no sense to do it. Now there's no cancer suppression on the market at all. And now more dogs probably have cancer as an effect of that. And probably Big Pharma's making money off of that, right? Big vet pharma, whatever. But you get the idea. It's all the same model.
To the public, right? So they set up a national compensation fund. Then you're playing by the federal government's rules in their own courts. And so also another thing that happened is in 2010, I'm going to cite this, is there was a Supreme Court case called Citizens United versus FEC. What they decided in the Supreme Court case was that now a corporation is a person, is a singular person, and that to restrict the amount of money that they are able to give to somebody running in a campaign would be infringing on their First Amendment right of freedom of expression. And so from there, we now have today where 95 out of 100 United States senators are now backed by Big Pharma. And then you also have on the flip side, referring back to what Ronald Reagan did in the 80s, you have a large amount of doctors now that are being paid off. As I'm going to bring up the statistic again, 70% of research being published by physicians is published with a conflict of interest. 80% of...
Wow. Yo, this brother is cooking, dog. Oh my goodness.
Of NIH
He's killing them.
funding comes from Big Pharma. Things like these, I say, are reason enough that Kennedy's reforms need to take place.
It's interesting, you bring up quite a few subjects. I'll start with the vaccine injury fund. I think that's valuable. I think.
Oh, that's valuable. Of course, you want to talk about that. You don't want to talk about the fact that most doctors are paid to write shit. Most of this review has financial interest behind it. Come on, man. Come on.
Perhaps
Most of this research, not review.
interpretation of the rule there is not exactly accurate.
Okay.
If you go through this national vaccine compensation fund and you're not happy with what you received, and you're saying that they didn't give me enough money or it's taking too long, you could drop out and you could sue a vaccine manufacturer. That's absolutely true.
Most people don't have access to that. I'm suing someone without representation because I'm a motherfucking genius, dog. I can do that. I know how to work a demur. I know how to do motion practice. I'm learning this stuff on the fly. I'm basically going to law school, like, not really, but I'm basically learning it on the fly and figuring it out and making shit happen. You know what I mean? And even so, I'm at a much greater risk because I don't have the industry connections. Judges see the same lawyers all the time. You know what I mean? There are connections there. Sometimes you might have more credibility for one guy than the other, and that might skew your opinion on a case. So this is the type of shit that I have to go against. And if most people are not going to be able to represent themselves in court, it's a very complex process. The pleading, the procedural side of it, then you have to figure out how to actually get to the piece where you can talk about the substance, get through discovery. I mean, you're talking about loads of shit. And a lot of people don't have time for that, even if they had the capability to do that. So, moot point.
You could
That's
fact check.
unequivocally
That is, let's see what this guy.
true.
That's unequivocally
So,
true.
but the thing is,
That's
that
unequivocally-
the problem is in our country we have Big Pharma has protections that no other. That I mean, I was tried.
Okay, yeah. I mean, yeah, HIPAA laws are insane off the bat. No, but like he's not going to say what I was going to say. I was going to say what I was thinking was, you're talking about a big barrier for a lot of people to sue someone that committed injustice against them in the medical industry. That's a huge barrier. You got to have like $15,000 to $20,000 for an early retainer for a lawyer, or you got to be able to pay them hourly, or you got to pay like half of you. Some lawyers will take your case on contingency if you're willing to give up fucking 70% of what you're going to get. Maybe 50, maybe 30 sometimes, right? It's a lot of fucking money. Taxes out of that too. And then, or you can go represent yourself and put in hours and hours and hours and hours with a lot of risk. There are no good options.
Let me get out here for big supplement because I was going to argue.
Civil litigation, there should be some sort of representation, free representation, public representation for civil litigators. I understand that would increase the rate of frivolous claims, but we got to look into that somehow. There's got to be an agency or something that will take claims from civil litigants, I should say, not litigators, but civil litigants, pro se litigants. They can submit their claim to some authority, some big governing body, and they review it and they assign a lawyer for free if they think that there's merits to the case. There are merits to the case, right? That's necessary, I think.
That Big Pharma has protections that Big Supplement does not.
Well, they have protections, but they
Very true, very true. Big Pharma definitely has a lot more credibility in supplements than supplements, and protections as well legally. They definitely have more laws that prevent competition. Just in general, man, Big Pharma is way, way more of a villain than Big Supplement. I'm not saying supplements are all great, but a lot of people don't trust supplements to begin with. But a lot of people do trust pharmaceuticals. That's the big difference. Pharmaceuticals are given to you with authority. Supplements are given to you by a sketchy guy at a GNC.
also
It's just naturally not the same thing.
have a responsibility to put out research that is checked by independent researchers, where Big Supplement doesn't. Like, how do we know that taking a medication to lower your blood pressure prevents a heart attack? Because they did the research studies to prove it. But
That's fair enough. That's also fair. I'm not saying all pharmaceuticals are bad, but I do think Big Pharma as a whole has a lot of evil within it. But he's making a good point here. What he just said about the fact that there's a higher barrier to entry for pharmaceuticals into the industry, into the stream per se, to consumer, than for supplements. You can just put horny goat weed on a GNC shelf, right? You don't need much there. And it doesn't need to be FDA regulated as long as you don't put the FDA sticker on there. You put a bunch of other stickers where you go to some fucking fair and some guy working out of his mom's garage puts this is the United States Dietary Association of Individuals with whatever, USDAIF approved, and it's just some guy. You know what I mean? I get that supplements are trash sometimes, but I think they're two different grades of villain. You're talking about like Lex Luthor with Big Pharma, and then you're talking about like your high school bully with supplements. It's completely different.
When someone recommends a supplement, they don't have to do that.
So I think it's different. So in the state of California, I mean, as of 1980, in all 50 states, you were required to get a vaccine to go to public school, right? This is the thing. So the difference between Big Pharma and Big Supplement is choice.
That's true. That's true. Great point. Another great point by this guy. Big Pharma is way more institutionalized and forcibly shoved down your throat.
Manufacturers or companies making the exact same thing. The reason why something is called a supplement is because you're supplementing something that's already in your diet. So in today's day in America, 70% of children 70% of a child's diet is now ultra-processed foods, right? And so from there, you're having things like vitamin C, creatine, all these things, which already exist in the foods we eat, which we are now lacking at a rate like never before because of the diet we have in America.
Do you think there's a
This guy's a freaking hero.
widespread issue of vitamin C deficiency in the United States?
I'm not sure specifically about vitamin C.
Well, you just
I don't
said
know.
that.
I'd say
Creatine deficiency, I don't know.
But I'm saying is, so creatine appears in foods like steak, whatever else. I mean, we're eating those less than we did before. It's necessary.
We're eating red meats less than before?
I would say so.
No,
Natural
the
red
American
meat.
standard diet is full
Natural
of
red meat. What a cheeseburger is made out of is not necessarily the same as. What
I
directly
think
comes
this
from
is a
cow.
really cool thing for us.
Yeah, the cheeseburger probably has the whole cow in there, man. Grinded through a meat grinder and put in patty form.
To end on, because it's going to be about me making
And probably some mice and cockroaches in that bitch too.
a disclosure that I'm curious how it lands for you.
Okay.
Are you familiar with the pharmaceutical company Abbott?
No.
Okay, well, there's a pharmaceutical company. It's a giant pharmaceutical company. They're called Abbott Labs. They paid me over the last 5 years. I
I've heard of Abbott.
created content for them. Do you think that biases me as a physician to be a worse physician?
I would have to know more about you and things that you said, things that you reported.
It's definitely possible, right? It's definitely possible that you were biased by that. I don't think that they're paying you to make negative reviews of their shit, right?
Things like that to be able to say
based on
that.
the conversations you heard today, or is it reasonable
We
to
haven't
think that
talked.
a
Well, we
bias
haven't
is-
talked about Abbott.
Well, here's the reason why I bring it up. Because some people bring this up as a way to sort of weaponize the fact that I'm taking money from Big Pharma. And I think it's reasonable to bring it up whether or not it does bias me. I think I should evaluate that within myself. Here's what
Fair. I appreciate that he said that.
I took money from Abbott for. To create a multi-year long campaign to encourage blood donation.
Okay.
Abbott is one of the largest testers in the United States of donated blood. So they make money by checking donated blood to make sure it's free of diseases, because that's what we want, right? Like if you get into a car accident and you get a transfusion, you want disease-free blood. So I think it's a good thing that they do that. And they were facing a huge shortage, especially after the pandemic. So they hired me to try and figure out a way to encourage blood donation.
So your main argument would be that we should look into, the actions that people are actually taking when they do take money from companies or whatever that be, and we want to see what people are doing with it.
Sure.
So should you say that that argument then applies to RFK's actions after winning lawsuits and getting paid from those?
Sorry, I didn't follow.
Okay, so then you criticize RFK from taking money, right? So I think that we should say here is, we need to apply that exact same logic to Kennedy. Because you criticized him heavily for taking money in the lawsuits and the cases.
I didn't criticize him. I presented that because someone said earlier that if someone is biased by taking money from a pharmaceutical company, I said, how is he not biased if he's taking money from a lawsuit case?
So I think generally your overall argument is that so often bias isn't necessarily a bad thing.
I think bias that is hidden is a bad thing.
Okay, how would you say that something is a hidden bias when you have situations like on a grand scale in the United States, and this is kind of my overall problem, right, is that you're seeing that this money is actually making a difference. It's not just somebody supporting a company or whoever is giving them money because they believe in what that company stands for, right? Because what we're seeing is if you give a doctor even a meal as small as $20, then they're actually going to be more likely to prescribe
So
from
do you
that
think
company.
I'm more biased because I took a
Wow.
lot of money from Abbott?
That's the thing, I don't know anything
But you just said $20.
It's possible though. It's possible. I mean, this guy's saying he's saying if you're not willing, basically what he's trying to do, right? And I get it. He's saying I'm not biased and I took money, and I get that. But I'm not a rapist and I'm a man. Doesn't mean no men are rapists, right? Come on. I mean, what he's trying to do is basically be call me biased to my face, or you're a fucking pussy. Dude, that doesn't mean that nobody's biased, bro. Come on. It's bad logic.
$20 will bias you. So I took way more than $20, I promise you.
But are you actively writing prescriptions right now?
Of course, I'm a practicing physician. But do you know how many vaccines?
But Abbott is a tester, so it doesn't apply. But yeah. Anyway, guys, we're gonna wrap this up. This guy This guy's fucking amazing, man. He's articulated things that I've been trying to explain to my family for a long time, like 15 years now, and he's supported them with statistics. So thank you for that ammunition, brother. I'm glad he said what he said on here. He made some great points. Overall, I think this was a good video. Anyway, like, comment, and subscribe. Comment if you think that there's anything else I should talk about, anything you want me to put my take on. Other than that, man, yeah, I'm out. Peace.